The third thing that came to your mind when we were starting to kind of look at your perspective was not necessarily an event, but more your father's examples. So it was kind of accumulation of actions. And you said he would never have taken your job.
Well, I think that's an example. I think too many people tie success into prestige and money. And I say that because my father was a high school teacher and coach for 28 years at the same high school, was never the head coach, was the defensive coordinator, the head baseball coach. But all my family, as I told you, I was the first one to leave home. But all my family, his brothers, his sisters, my mother's family, everybody's there. So my point is, I felt he was the wealthiest man in the world, and he never had any money. I mean, 6 kids, and I think the most he might have ever made was $35,000, $40,000. That was after 28 years. So it wasn't about money, but he was wealthy beyond belief with the joy, the fun, the family, his family. And I say this because he wouldn't do my job and make all the money I did for all the money in the world, because he wouldn't want to live that way. And there's a lot of value in the way you want to live, regardless of prestige, fame, or money, whatever it may be. To me, those are all false and crazy to pursue. It's more pursuing what truly makes you happy. And I think of one of the best memories of my father. He'd be sitting at the kitchen table, 9:30, maybe 9:45, later at night. My uncle would be driving by, my Uncle Bob, who I'm named after, and he'd be driving by on his way home from somewhere or from practice or whatever, and they'd stop and play a game of pinochle for an hour or a half hour, and I'd hear them yelling at each other, throwing the cards across the table, kidding each other, but he loved that. And there's a lot of value in, again, appreciating and enjoying the way you live.
Well, and his example sort of led you into the next guy that came to mind. I actually interviewed Steve for this, and I just want to show you something. This is the spring when you arrive, and you see this.
Well, I did have taken my shirt off out there. It seemed like a beautiful day, which we have in Florida, and you got that line of your golf shirt, so might as well take it off.
Listen, you have no idea. He's the best. But here's the thing. Yeah, he want to get rid of the golfer's tan, right? You got your, this is tan and this isn't. So he'd take his shirt off and be coaching the quarterbacks, and he's getting his tan. Or sometimes he'd take his shoes off, because same thing, you get the shoes, white feet, and he'd be just getting those a little bit of sun. But you get to calling plays, he's going to win, and he's as competitive a person I've ever been around. But so what? He's got his shirt off. He's still teaching the right things, and that's how he was. What matters is when I'm telling the quarterbacks, whether I have my shirt on or not really doesn't matter, So, and he's right, and that's it. That's him, You know
what else is him?
And he's his own guy.
Totally, and this isn't, so the suntan might have been, there was a level of importance. What else was important was the moon. Take a look at this. I
was a Monday night practice guy, and the moon some nights was just beautiful. So we'd take time out, and man, we're blessed, aren't we, fellas?
That's true. He is very much, he's a son of a preacher, very, very spiritual as well. I don't know I've ever been with him where, even in family settings or whatever we're doing, even out with a bunch of buddies, that we don't have a meal without him or somebody saying blessing before it. But and he's that way. He sees the big picture. I've been with him a million times watching the sunset. He's going to take a minute to check it out. Or just like he said, Monday night before we leave, let's all check out the moon here, fellas, real quick. He wanted the players, to learn to appreciate other things.
We talk about the time you were in the ocean with him.
It's my first year there. I go. They had just played for the national championship the year before. I was at Kansas State. Well, I'm now working for him the next year, and it's our second game of the year, I believe, second or third, and we're playing Tennessee with Peyton Manning, and we have Danny Warfel, the Heisman Trophy winner, and we're both ranked. I'm at Florida. We're 1-2 or 1-3. It's a huge game. And my first really big game there, and even at Kansas State, we hadn't had a game of that magnitude. And I can remember we had an off week, so we didn't play the week before playing them. So after practice on Thursday, we drive to the beach. my wife and Coach Spurrier's wife, Jerry, were already over there at the beach with Scotty. And my wife and I, so Carol goes over ahead of me with Jerry, and Coach and I, after practice, get in the car and drive to the beach. And we're going to spend the weekend at the beach, and we've got Tennessee the next week. And we're floating around in the ocean, and he said, "Bobby, you think Phil Fulmer's in the ocean today?" I said, "No, I could pretty much assure you he's not." I said, "I can't believe I am." So that's just him.
But he thought a fresh coach was a better coach.
He very much so thought that a fresh coach, a fresh mind, being mattered. It made a difference, and he's right. I believe that.
No question. And that he kind of led you into your last thought for the perspective. When you see this, what do you see?
How little I need. That's a little A-frame 3-bedroom house with 8 of us living in it. So and usually a dog, as well. So. But you know what? I had, that's what I mean, I had everything. We had a neighborhood full of buddies to this day, or some of my closest friends. We'd take 10 of us or 6, 8 of us in the neighborhood. We'd walk 4, 5, 6 blocks down the other way and play the other neighborhood, play their street in football, basketball, fights, whatever we could do. So,
but that allowed you, because you had that perspective, you knew how little you needed to coach from a place of detachment.
I think that's right. I didn't have to have all of this. My ego doesn't need it. I think obviously when I stepped, all of that, I never got into coaching to be this guy. In fact, I tell a story that I'm signing of footballs every Friday. My secretary, all the things that come in through the week, we get them out on Fridays. And I said to her one time, "Who is Bob Stoops anyway?" It just seems like this different guy that I have to be when I walk in front of my team or when I go to the sidelines. It's like a different persona. It's not my true nature. It's in some ways, but in fact,
almost like performer self versus real.
Yeah.
Self. Yeah.
In fact, funny story. When my sons were 5 or 6, you know how you leave recruiting all week. I had been gone recruiting all week, and I come home on a Friday. I didn't have my key to the house. They were eating dinner, and so I knock on the door, and Isaac, my one son, answers the door with his hat on backwards and looks up at me, and he yells into the house to the other kids and my wife, "Hey everybody, Bob Stoops is here." So I got, well, it's, so that's what I mean about it's like it's this different person, not this guy. And that's why, like I said, some of my dearest friends to this day are guys that I was running around the neighborhood with.
All those things are what allowed him to have the perspective to walk away and really, when everyone's telling you not, and find your true man.
I'm going to say it wrong, but there's a story someone told me about a guy who's really faithful, strong Christian, and he's drowning in a river, and he keeps praying to God. He's praying to God that, surely God will save me. He's not going to let me perish here in this river. And while he's sitting there praying and thinking God's going to save him, there goes a log, and then there goes something else, and there goes something else. And in the meantime, so he drowns. He lets them all pass by. He drowns, and he gets to heaven, and he's mad at God. "Why didn't you save me? I've been faithful. I've been da-da-da-da-da." He said, "Well," he goes, "you got to help yourself at some point. I put a log in front of you. I put this in front of you. I put that in front of you. Why didn't you save yourself?" So in the end, it's don't miss, when these things come to you, pay attention to them. Be aware of what those feelings are, what those signals are, what those moments are. And some of this had started to come to me. Why would that thought, when it never entered my mind before, all of a sudden, I wake up or go to bed one night thinking, what if I stepped out? And then it comes again at some certain point. And then you start analyzing it and you realize it's about perfect. I knew the right guy was in place. I knew my team would be able to handle it. I had a mature, good team that would be able to look at it and say, "Hey, it's okay. We're all still here," And I knew I could step out and not one person lose a job, And that doesn't usually happen when a head coach, leaves. And I was aware enough of, you know, what was coming at me to act on it.